Welcome back to another Crusty Cravings video. I'm Hannah, and today I'm going to be sharing a story with you that I've held onto for over a year. The tea is piping hot, and I hope you're sat. This is the story of how I joined and got kicked out of my first farmer's market as a sourdough vendor. I originally shared this story on TikTok a week ago, and it attracted over 1.5 million viewers over the course of a week, and a lot of people were pissed off that they couldn't watch it because they don't have TikTok. So here we go, telling it again on YouTube. I think this story proved to me that people do not have a lack of attention span. They just only want to listen to what they want to listen to, and if it's the tea, they are all in, they're sat. In July of 2024, I had been in business for a little over 4 months, and I was looking to expand into markets. I thought that markets would be the best way for me to grow my business and create awareness of my brand locally. So I looked into my local farmers markets. One thing that was shocking to people on TikTok is that often farmers markets are very old school in their mentality. They have the scarcity mentality. They limit the amount of vendors per category, and they have even no compete markets where they only have one vendor per category. So say somebody's already selling sourdough bread, they may not allow a second sourdough vendor in or even a second bread vendor in because they believe that that is going to limit the other vendor's ability to sell their products and to be successful. I was already aware of this because I had heard that through the grapevine from other vendors who had been at many pop-up markets and farmers markets around our area. And I knew that I didn't want to be part of an old school type farmers market that thought this way. So I was very careful about the markets I was applying to. I was working full-time. I had my corporate job as a corporate recruiter, and I only wanted to do one market per month. A lot of farmers markets required you to be there weekly or to be there on a certain day of the week. A lot of markets are randomly on a Wednesday or a Thursday or even a Friday in our area. I knew I didn't want a market on Sundays. I like to reserve that day for church and family time and resetting for the week. So that left me with Saturdays, and I was only looking at Saturday markets in our area and markets that allowed me to go whenever I wanted and sign up for whichever markets I wanted. I know I'm going to disappoint a lot of people by not sharing the name of the market market manager, and the names of the others involved in this story, but I think it is important for me to protect the market as a whole because there are a lot of amazing vendors that I met through this market, and I would hate to limit the amount of business or foot traffic they get simply because I had a bad experience with the market. So July 29th, 2024, I reach out to the market coordinator who manages several markets in our area, but specifically the one that I wanted to get into on a Saturday. And I said, "Hi, I've been attending your farmer's market for quite some time. I'm interested in more information. I just started my sourdough microbakery in March. Can you send me more info? Essentially, here's my social media." So she reaches back out to me right away and says, "Hi, I do everything through the website. You can sign up for a vendor account and sign up for the specific events that you want to sign up for. We do have a couple of sourdough, but it's okay to have 2 at some events. I'll let you know if you sign up for an event that's full for sourdough, but you should be good for most of our events. Thanks." So I let her know right away that I was only signing up for Saturdays and I was only doing 1 per month. I selected the dates way ahead of time for the next 4 months that worked for me and told her to look over my dates and just make sure that they worked and that it wasn't full for sourdough. And she said, "Okay, Saturdays is fine. I do have another sourdough seller, but that should be okay. We run about 20 vendors, and I do have a spot for you on a couple other days that nobody has signed up for if that works." And I told her, Thursdays doesn't work. Other days of the week do not work because I work full time. I'm only doing Saturdays. The interesting thing about this market is that it was a first come, first serve type situation because she has so many different events that she runs all across Southwest Florida. She doesn't have time to babysit people and make sure that they pay. So if you sign up for a date and you prepay for it, that secures your spot. You take priority over other vendors that do not prepay, because a lot of people wait till the last second, and she has no control over who's prepaying and who's not. So whoever prepays, their spot is secure. So I wanted to make sure that I secured the 4 dates that worked for me throughout the fall season. So I told her I already selected the dates that I'm able to attend the markets. Let me know if those were taken by other bread vendors. I love that you limit the number of bread vendors. That makes me even more excited. I knew that it was a small market and that we maybe would get 150 to 250 people during the fall. And once the snowbirds come back for the season, maybe 500 people. So I knew that having 5 bread vendors probably wasn't very effective, but with just 2 of us, I thought that we would be plenty successful together, and I was totally fine with that. And she said, yep, you are fine for those dates. Perfect, thanks. And then I prepay to secure my spots. This is important. So my first market was planned for September 7th, and I started buying all of the supplies that I needed. I needed a tent, I needed weights, I needed insurance to be able to operate at these markets. I also needed a cash box and a way to take credit card payments and a bunch of things for displaying my products. And so I bought all of that, and that cost me about $670 to buy all of my market set up. I show up to my first market on September 7th. I have very high anxiety when it comes to new situations, and I just wanted things to go smoothly and be perfect because I care deeply about my products. This is the first time I'm ever selling my products in this way. I had done pre-orders for my products in the past and sold to friends and family, but this was going to be opening me up to a new audience of people, and I was just nervous. I had high anxiety. See the market manager with clipboard telling people where to set up. I fully expect that there's another bread vendor there because she said that there would be 2 of us. And she says, you know, set up here. This is your spot. So I start setting up my tent and my weights and my whole setup. My husband's there helping me. As I'm setting up, she walks over to me. I'm halfway through setting up my banners, my tent, my tables, my display. And she says, hey, I need to talk to you for a second about your dates. Hey, like, what's up? What's wrong with my dates? Mind you, I don't know how long it's going to take me to set up, so I think it's kind of odd that she's coming to me in the middle of setting up and pulling me aside to talk to me. But I say, what's up? What's wrong with my dates? You know, talk to me. And she said, well, you know, the other bread vendor's not here today. And I said, no, I didn't know that, but that's good to know. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, she's on vacation, so it's fine that you're here today, but we may have an issue with future dates. And I said, okay, what do you mean? You told me back in July that you do have another sourdough vendor and that it was fine. You approved my dates and I prepaid. So what's the problem? She said, well, you know, it's not peak season right now, and our foot traffic has been a little bit slow. It's been really hot. The snowbirds aren't back. And I just don't know if you both will be successful. So I'm worried that having 2 sourdough vendors on the same day is going to limit the amount of opportunity for both of you. And I want you both to be successful. And I say, okay, well, what does her menu look like? You know, like, what does she sell? And she says, oh, she just sells like sourdough bread. I said, well, to be honest with you, like, I've already looked at her stuff because you want to check out what the other vendors are selling. You want to make sure you're bringing a variety. You want to make sure you're standing out and bringing other options so that people shop your stuff and maybe buy from both bread vendors. So I told her, like, I know she makes the sandwich shape. I make artisan loaves. I make mini loaves. I see that she doesn't do mini loaves. I bring other baked goods. I'm going to be bringing cookies and cinnamon rolls and muffins and scones and a variety of other things. So I truly don't feel like there's going to be a big conflict of interest there, and I think we will both be successful. The reason being is I'm going to be doing all of my own marketing for the events. I'm going to be pushing it on my socials, and I see that you just don't do a lot of marketing right now. This was a dig because her marketing was her walking around the market, filming every vendor, saying what each vendor was bringing that day and posting it on the spot. No hashtags, no trending audio, and it just was reaching like 2 or 3 people. Her account had maybe 200 followers and her Facebook page like wasn't that popular. So I knew she wasn't doing very much marketing or bringing much foot traffic in through her marketing. So I said, you know what, like, I'm going to be pushing it really hard on my socials, and I am going to be bringing in my own customers. I do have a big customer base already that's really excited for me to be here, I don't think it's going to be an issue. And if the other vendor thinks it's an issue, like, I'm more than happy to smooth things over and introduce myself. I don't want her to hate me just because I'm selling sourdough bread too. So, just let me know. It's like, okay, well, another option is for you to do pre-orders only for your bread and to sell your other baked goods. And I said, I didn't pay $45 to only do pre-orders for bread. I came here to be able to sell to walk-up customers, to grow my customer base. So it doesn't make sense for me to come here if you're only going to allow me to do pre-orders for bread and just sell my other baked goods. Like, my sign says everything sourdough. People are going to walk up and say, okay, like, what do you have for me to buy that's sourdough? And I'm going to say, oh, I have like these muffins and like cookies and stuff that are made with sourdough, but sorry, I only do pre-orders for bread. No, that's bizarre. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I'm not doing that. And she said, okay, well, I think your date in October, which she was telling me was October 12th. It was actually the first weekend in October, but I didn't have my dates pulled up. But she was telling me that October 12th was the issue, and that I basically could only do pre-orders then for bread. But once the market season really started in Southwest Florida around like November, December timeframe, we weren't going to have an issue because there was going to be more foot traffic. So I tell her, since this is how you're thinking, I'm not coming for the October market, so I would appreciate a refund. I said, sorry, like, I have to continue setting up. I need to make sure that my display looks really nice, so I'll talk to you like later. I finished the market that day. I sold everything but 2 loaves, and I just did really well, and it made me super excited for the rest of the events, because if I'm doing this well during the slow season, imagine how much better it's going to get once we do enter the peak season. I get home and I follow up because I love to follow up. I'm just very effective at communication. And I also wanted everything in writing because this woman was giving me whiplash going back and forth on what she was saying in emails versus in person. And I knew I wanted to have a paper trail if anything were to happen. So I email her and I say, per our conversation in person at the market on 9/7, you told me that I could only attend the October 12th market if I exclusively did pre-orders for bread. I do not think that this is in my best business interest to cut out being able to sell bread to new customers, and thus I have gone a different direction for the month of October. I am requesting a full refund as I'm not flexible to switch my date. She had offered to switch me to a different day of the week, and I told her, no, like, Thursdays don't work, Wednesdays don't work. I don't want to do a different market. I want to do the Saturday market that I signed up for and paid for. So no, I'm not switching my date. So I said I'm requesting a full refund for that date because I'm not flexible. Per our conversation in July via email, and I sent an attachment, of course, we agreed that the dates in October, November, and December I selected work, despite any overlap with other bread vendors. I was under the impression that prepaying secured my spot and that you don't hold spots for other vendors. Can you please confirm with me ASAP that these dates still work? As you know, the bread scene is competitive, and I will be looking into other options immediately to be booked out to December since I invested quite a bit of money in my market setup. Let me know when you've sent the refund for the October 12th date. And I inserted that little line about prepaying secures your spot. I had found out that the other bread vendor supposedly signed up for the season, but she did not prepay for the whole season. I had asked in person, like, oh, she signed up for the season. Does that mean she also paid for the season? And the lady's like, well, no. She just pays me, monthly. And come to find out, she was just paying her weekly, but she was not prepaying for the entire market season. So I thought that was kind of bizarre. Anyway, the issue was not October 12th. Evidently, I had signed up for the 5th. I should have looked at my calendar. I should have known better, but the date that I had signed up for was the 5th. And she said, wait. Like, that's not even an issue. The 12th is not an issue. You didn't sign up for the 12th. You signed up for the 5th. And the 5th is not an issue, so you can still do my market. She panicked a little bit because I had found a backup plan and gone to a different market and was asking for a refund. And she said, my brain has so many dates and an event is not the time to talk to you about this. I should have looked before we talked, and I actually don't do refunds, but I can credit you and you can use it anytime. Sorry about the confusion. I said, well, it's putting me in a tough spot to be in limbo for the dates that I already prepaid for and was told were fine. I was under the impression that that secured my spot. What is it that you have to confirm with the other vendor? If she says she's uncomfortable with me being there, do you plan to refund me? Again, I'm not flexible with my dates and I plan very far in advance. So if the conclusion is that I cannot be there and sell bread for the dates that I signed up for, I would appreciate a refund out of the principle of the matter. I'm happy to come to your market and would appreciate the credit towards a future event, as I'm signed up for an event the weekend of October 5th now. I don't want to be difficult or create any issues for the other bread vendor, as I fully expect us both to be successful. Then she says, the other bread vendor is signed up for the season. I did email and say that it was okay, and it is. My mistake was talking about the 12th, which isn't even a thing. You are signed up for October 5th, which is fine. You made other plans, and now you're asking for a refund, which in everything you signed up for says that there are no refunds. The confusion was the 12th, which isn't a thing. So I just said you're 99.99% fine, but I'm going to give respect to double check. But ultimately, it's up to me. So she just doesn't want to piss off her other bread vendor that's there for the season because she doesn't want to lose her other bread vendor. So she wants to double check with her that it's fine. And I said, okay, just let me know. I asked if you thought the other dates I signed up for in November and December would be fine at the market, and you said you weren't sure. That's where my confusion is coming from. I'll take the credit for the October 5th date for later in the season when there might not be as much conflict of interest and it will be busier. I made plans because I thought it was a no-go for me to be there and sell bread. Thanks. So I skipped the October market. I have the credit to use in the future, maybe even the spring. And I have a successful market at my other location. And I show back up in November for my second market. So this is where it gets really interesting because I know that the other sourdough vendor is going to be there this time. I am fully mentally preparing for these interactions and to make sure that I am the kindest, most welcoming human and that I make it known that we are both going to be successful and I just want to be kind. So I show up to the market, I'm setting up. Again, I'm not even halfway through setting up. And the little market manager marches over to me and says, hey, you didn't bring bread today, right? You should have just seen the look on my face. I'm like, what do you mean I didn't bring bread? Of course I brought bread. I'm a sourdough vendor. My sign says everything sourdough. Of course I brought bread. I told you I wasn't coming back to this market if you didn't allow me to sell bread. So yes, I fully expected to be able to sell my bread today. So I brought 50 loaves. Like, what do you mean? And she goes, oh, well, the other sourdough vendor's here today. I'm like, yeah, like you told me there would be 2 of us throughout the season. So I was fully expecting her to be here. What's the problem? She's like, well, I told you that you can only do pre-orders for bread. I said, no, you didn't. In the emails that we sent back and forth, it's all documented. And I said straight up, I would not be coming back if you only allowed me to do pre-orders. And she's like, okay, well, we're going to have to talk to the other vendor. So I need you to come with me. And at this point, I'm furious because I don't think I could have been any more clear in my emails to the market manager that I did not intend to come back if she wouldn't let me sell bread. I marched my little butt over there and I am furious in my head, but I'm putting on a really nice smile and I stick out my hand and I say, hi, I'm Hannah. Nice to meet you. I'm the other sourdough vendor. And I just want to let you know that I'm not here to step on your toes or take your business. I'm only going to be here once a month. I'm a home baker. I'm very small scale. I bake out of my home oven. I'm only baking about 30 to 50 loaves at any given time. And I bake a bunch of other baked goods, but I don't intend to steal your customers. And essentially like, what do you want to talk about? Because the market manager wanted me to come over and chit chat with you. So what do we need to talk about to basically clear the air? She is very hostile in her demeanor and her body language. She's wearing sunglasses. She's not smiling. And she just said, well, I just don't understand. Why did you have to pick this market? Why do you have to be here? Why did you want to pick this market? And at this point, I'm like, she's just not being very welcoming or kind. She's being very hostile. Like, that's just it's a weird question to ask somebody like right out of the gate. So I say, I don't have to answer that, but if you really want to know, I work full time. I'm a mom to 2 kids. I have my husband on the weekends. He works full time, and he can help me on Saturdays with the kids while I'm here. And I just am looking to grow my business, and this market was in alignment with what I could do. Like, why are you here? Why did you pick this market? If we're asking that question, I flipped it back on her, like, why do you have to be here? And she's just not really interested in engaging in conversation or smoothing things over or making it work for both of us. She instead looks at the market manager and just says, well, I told you I just don't want her here. I don't want the competition. This is my spot. I signed up for the season. I just really don't want her here. And I'm like, okay, this woman is not interested in smoothing things over or working out an agreement to where this works for us. I just tell her, like, wait, how many loaves can you actually bake in a week? And she says, well, I can bake 200 loaves. Which, if you're a home baker and you bake out of your home oven, you know that is almost impossible to do. And if you are baking 200 loaves in a week, they're probably not very fresh loaves. You would have to be only baking in loaf pans and just working for 24 hours straight to get that many loaves out for a farmer's market. And so I just was like, I know this woman is lying to me. But she's essentially saying this so that she can prove that she has enough inventory to supply an entire farmer's market without me being there. I said, okay, well, I nearly sold out last time. I have a feeling that we're both going to do well today. In my head, though, I'm pissed off because I hate the scarcity mentality. I believe that there's plenty of room for everybody. I believe in the abundance mindset. I believe that there are infinite opportunities for us. We just have to capitalize on them. And so I was not threatened by her. I knew that I would bring in my own customers and do my own marketing and sell my products effectively. And I believed with every fiber of my being that we both were going to be successful, that she was going to bring in her own customers and that I was going to bring in mine. But if I was going to be dealing with a hostile vendor every week that was going to be sending people over to my tent to spy on my products and gossip about me with other vendors and give me dirty looks and be unchristlike, that I didn't want to be there. I told the market manager that I would not be attending this market if I could only do pre-orders for bread and only sell my baked goods, because I'm trying to grow my business from a sourdough standpoint, not just my baked goods. So essentially, if I can't do that, I'm not coming back. And I told the market manager to her face, you're not going to tell me that I can't sell my bread today. I have it in writing that I'm allowed to be here, that I'm allowed to sell my products, and I'm not going to be told that I can't sell the 50 loaves that I worked 48 hours to prep and bake to bring to this market, and you are going to give me a refund. Because if you're going to be like this every week and you're going to limit what I can and can't do and can't sell, I'm not coming back. And I know you don't do refunds, but you're going to give me a refund out of the principle of the matter. And I said, can you please excuse me? I have to go set up the rest of my setup. And I'm furious. I am noticeably angry at this point. And I'm marching back over to the tent like, oh, I'm so mad. This is so stupid. This is the dumbest thing I've ever experienced. These ladies that are twice my age are absolutely ridiculous. And I just can't believe that there are grown adults that act like this. My husband is Bolivian and he always calls gossip chisme. That's what it is in Spanish. So he's trying to listen to the chisme as I'm talking to this vendor and the market manager. And he's like, oh my gosh, like what happened? Like, why are you so angry? And I'm just like, oh, this is the dumbest thing I've ever experienced. Like, these people are so stupid. I can't believe there's people like this. And then of course, like I finished setting up. I'm still having heart palpitations because of how angry I am. But I know that the mentality that I have and the way that I acted was going to take me much further in life and give me way more opportunities than these ladies would ever experience in their lifetime. So I'm feeling confident. The other bread vendor, I see her just walking around from tent to tent, gossiping with the other vendors. She's just glaring at me, and she's keeping her young daughter at the tent to man the booth and collect payment, but she's not even selling her product. She's just walking around the market the whole time and just staring at me across from me as I'm being kind, interacting with customers, selling my product, telling everyone that I have samples, showcasing the benefits of sourdough, talking about my process and the flour I use and how I take care of my starter and blah, blah, blah. I'm actually selling because that's what I am. I'm a seller. At the end of the day, I'm a seller. And one thing about me is I'm not passive aggressive. I'm just straight up aggressive. And if there's confrontation, I'm just going to handle it man to man, straight up. A lot of people on TikTok were asking me, like, why did you even walk over there? That wasn't your job to go talk to the other vendor. That was all in the market manager. And while I agree, that's true, I don't know what the market manager was telling me in email and her in email and what she was telling us in person. I thought there was a lot of miscommunication happening and probably a lot of things that were lost in translation. And I wanted to hear it directly from the source and make sure she was the one that had a problem with me and it wasn't just the market manager being dumb. So that's why I talked to her in the first place. Looking back, I'm really glad that I did talk to her in person and I was able to communicate how I viewed opportunities and the fact that I had the abundance mindset. Another interesting piece of tea is that there was a window seller at the market when the other sourdough vendor was on vacation. She came over to my booth and said, "You're not the sourdough vendor that's usually here, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm new. There's another girl that comes every week, but I'm just going to be here once a month." And she's trying to get all the tea. She tries all my samples. She says, "Oh my gosh, this is so good." And she's like, don't tell the other vendor I said this, but I feel like your stuff is like way better than hers. It's so good. And she bought like 2 things for her son because she said her son really likes that kind of stuff. And she just kept talking to me, talking my ear off. And she was telling a lot of people that were walking by that like my stuff was so good and that they should try it. And then when I had that confrontation with the other sourdough vendor at the next market, that same window girl was there, and I was even referring business over to the other sourdough vendor. I was saying things like, "Oh, I know you're disappointed that my jalapeno cheddar bread sold out this week, but the other sourdough vendor's here and she also has that flavor on her menu, so you might go down there and just check and try her samples because she also has samples, and maybe like you just buy a loaf from her instead if that's the one that you really wanted." And I had like no hard feelings. I was just like, I'm going to do unto others as I would have them do unto me, not as they do to me. So I'm just going to be the bigger person and just be kind and move on, find better opportunities and just like get over this, Then that window girl, she walked past my booth giving me really dirty looks after she had talked to the other sourdough vendor. She goes down, she buys a loaf from the other sourdough vendor, and then as she's walking past my booth, she says something to the people in line to buy bread from me. Like, "Oh, I buy my bread from the other sourdough vendor. It's so good. You guys should like try it. She has samples." And I'm like, this is just such petty, old school behavior. And I'm like, if other vendors are also acting like this, like I am being saved from something. And I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I was never meant to be at that event, that it was just a lesson learned and I moved on. I was a little bit scarred and I didn't want to try other events for a while, but a lot of the other vendors that were very kind encouraged me and said that there are other pop-up opportunities out there that are so much better and that I should try M&M Farms and Backyard Social. And I still keep in touch with a lot of those vendors. So again, like, I'm not sharing the market name or the market manager, because if those vendors that I really love are still there, I would hate to take business away from them, because I know how the internet can be. They can act like a mob whenever an injustice is done, and I just don't want them to be boycotting that market simply because I had a bad experience with the market manager. I do think that as a vendor, you should avoid those markets. So if you want to reach out to me, if you're looking to get into the Southwest Florida market scene and you just are curious of like what markets to avoid, I can definitely share with you what markets to avoid. A lot of people on TikTok were screaming like, go to court, go to small claims court. Here's the thing. It's not worth the hassle. I got my refund. I followed up like 3 times and was able to get my refund for all of those markets. I believe that opportunities come your way when you're a good person and you're kind and you do the right things. I believe in that abundance mindset, and I was given more opportunities than I can count. And so I think that justice was served at the end of the day, and I didn't even have to lift a finger to serve justice. The markets that she runs are still very small. I don't think they get a lot of foot traffic. There's only 10 to 15 vendors at the most. They're not growing, but the markets that I attend are absolutely growing. So karma, call it what you will, but karma. After that hostile interaction with the other sourdough vendor, I had every intention to just stay away and not say anything to her, not ever care about her life or follow up with her or look at her stuff. But I walked into church the next Sunday and saw her walking down the sidewalk and realized that I wasn't escaping the situation. I'm like, is God testing me? Really? This other sourdough vendor goes to my church? But I do believe that people make mistakes and that forgiveness is always on the table. And that, yes, I have even made mistakes in my life and probably didn't deserve forgiveness, but people gave it to me anyway. And so why not give that to her as well? So I do not hold any animosity or any bitterness towards her. She actually doesn't run her sourdough microbakery anymore. Her last post was in December of 2024, which was right after the market. So she ended up quitting anyway. So all of that hostility for nothing, she ended up just quitting. The problem took care of itself, if you will, and I didn't have to do anything about it. I don't think there's any reason for me to share her name because she's not in business anymore. And again, I don't believe in doing unto others as they do to you. I believe in doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I have every intention to not say her name. And that's the story of how I got kicked out of my first farmer's market. And I have since been successful and grown my business and gotten to a point where now this is my full-time job. And I just believe that good things happen to people who have the abundance mindset. If you are a vendor looking to get into farmers markets, know that there are a lot of markets out there that are very old school and you may run into similar situations, but there are a lot of amazing market managers too. And I found that very, very quickly and was able to find the right markets. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe and engage with this. Leave a comment, give me your opinion. Do you feel like I did the right thing by walking away from that market? And we will see you next time.